my dear listeners, welcome to another magical bedtime story. I am Kaori, and tonight we're stepping into a world of dreams, kindness, and a little bit of magic, the timeless tale of Cinderella. So, find a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's begin. The lonely Cinderella. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a kind and gentle girl named Cinderella. She wasn't always alone. Once, she had a loving father and mother, but after her mother passed away, her father remarried. His new wife, Cinderella's stepmother, was a cruel woman, and her two daughters were just as heartless. Then, one fateful day, her father also passed away, leaving Cinderella at the mercy of her wicked stepmother. From that moment on, Cinderella was no longer treated like family. She became a servant in her own home. While her stepsisters Drizella and Anastasia wore fine silk dresses and jewelry, Cinderella was dressed in old rags and forced to clean, cook, and work from morning till night. But even in sorrow, Cinderella remained kind, hopeful, and filled with dreams. She would sit by the kitchen fireplace, looking out the window, whispering to the little mice and birds that kept her company. One day, something wonderful will happen. I just know it. The grand ball announcement? One morning, an announcement arrived from the palace. The king was hosting a grand ball, and every young lady in the kingdom was invited. The reason? The prince was looking for a bride. Excitedly, Cinderella's stepsisters squealed with delight, rushing to pick out their gowns and jewels. But when Cinderella asked, her stepmother's voice turned cold. "Stepmother, you go to the ball? Huh, a maid like you? No, you must stay home and finish your chores." Cinderella's heart sank, but still, she didn't lose hope. That night, with the help of her little animal friends, she sewed herself a lovely dress from scraps of fabric. It wasn't as grand as her stepsister's gowns, but it was beautiful in its own way. However, just as she was about to leave for the ball, her stepsisters saw her. They tore at her dress, laughing cruelly, ripping it apart until she was left in rags once more. Cinderella ran outside into the garden, her heart broken. She cried beneath the starry sky, whispering, "Why is kindness never enough?" And then something magical happened. The fairy godmother appears. A soft golden glow filled the air, and suddenly, standing before her was an old woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. "Fairy godmother, my dear child, do not cry. You shall go to the ball." With a gentle wave of her wand, Cinderella's rags transformed into the most breathtaking gown she had ever seen, sparkling like the night sky. On her feet, delicate glass slippers shimmered, and a pumpkin nearby turned into a magnificent carriage. "Fairy godmother, but remember, my dear, this magic will only last until the stroke of midnight. After that, everything will return to the way it was." Cinderella's heart fluttered with joy. She climbed into the carriage, whispering, thank you so much." And off she went to the ball. A dance with the prince. The palace was filled with music and laughter. Candles flickered and chandeliers sparkled like a million stars. As Cinderella entered, the entire room fell silent. The prince's eyes locked onto hers. He walked toward her, took her hand, and led her to the dance floor. They danced and danced as if they were the only two in the world. But then the clock began to chime. Cinderella's heart pounded. She had to leave. She rushed out of the palace, running down the grand staircase, but in her haste, one glass slipper slipped off her foot. Before the prince could catch her, she had disappeared, leaving behind only the tiny glass slipper. The prince's search. Determined to find his mysterious love, the prince traveled across the kingdom with the slipper. Every young woman tried it on, but it fit no one, until finally he arrived at Cinderella's home. The stepsisters pushed forward, shoving their feet into the slipper, but it was no use. Then, quietly, Cinderella stepped forward. The slipper slid onto her foot, a perfect fit. And in that moment, the prince knew. "It's you." Her stepmother and stepsisters gasped in shock, but it didn't matter anymore. Cinderella was finally free. Happily ever after that very day, Cinderella and the prince were married in a grand celebration. The kingdom rejoiced, for their prince had found his true love. And Cinderella, she never forgot where she came from. She ruled with kindness, grace, and a heart full of love. Because in the end, dreams really do come true. And so, my dear listeners, that was the story of Cinderella, a tale of hope, kindness, and believing in magic even in the darkest times. Thank you for being here with me tonight. I hope this story brought you warmth and comfort and maybe a little bit of magic. Good night and sweet dreams.